Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Elmwood Park Mayor and Council for March 19, 2020, to order at 7:30 p.m. On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Here.
Golobeck,
Here.
Ingui,
Here.
Pellegrin,
Here.
Wetchler,
Here.
Council President Balistreri,
Here.
Mayor Coletti.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Erin. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. Before we get started, if everyone can please rise for our prayer and flag salute. Oh God, our Father, we ask you to bless our meeting, which we entrust to your fatherly care and protection. Please remove us of all selfishness and prejudice from our hearts and implant therein a keen sense of justice and a greater love for you and our neighbors. Guide us in our deliberations so that our decisions will always please you and bring your peace and happiness to our community. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Whereas Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of the State of New Jersey require at the commencement of every meeting a statement of compliance be read by the presiding officer. Now, therefore, be advised that the meeting requirements for this meeting have been met by publishing a special notice in the Record and Herald News and by posting such notice in the office of the Borough Clerk as well as in a public place within the municipal building. And by notifying interested citizens, said notice was posted on January 8th, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, for your edification, this meeting is being videotaped and will be on Cablevision, Channel 77 on Mondays at 3 p.m. and Thursdays at 11 a.m. The video will also be available on the borough's website at www.elmwoodparknj.us. Please note that due to precautionary measures to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19, we have a conference call set up for the public to call as a means of participating in tonight's meeting. For the public's information and record, the public hearing and comments have been as followed. We thank you in advance for your patience during the operation of tonight's meeting. And I just have a few words I'd like to say about the current unprecedented situation that we all are facing. I would like the public to know that this governing body is doing all it could to prevent the spread of this virus. We are abiding by directives coming down from federal, state, and county, which seems understandably to be changing day by day. Until an antidote is found, we are basically on our own. So we must listen to the professionals' advice on how to contain the virus. In doing so, we can minimize its exposure to the masses until the cure is found. Mr. Foligno, would you like to expand on this?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So just a few points on the matter at hand. I was on a conference call today with the county executive's office, all the administrators and some of the mayors in the state and police chiefs. Currently, Bergen County has approximately 205 cases. 52 towns out of 70 are affected, and there have been 3 confirmed fatalities. We are being guided by Governor Murphy's executive order number 104. The county executive's order has been rescinded and will not be implemented. If the general public has questions regarding COVID-19, please contact the New Jersey Department of Health Center at 800-962-1253. The call center is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and has a multi-language capacity. Please do not call the police department or Borough Hall as we are inundated with calls. Individuals exhibiting no symptoms are not recommended to be tested unless you are a healthcare provider or a first responder. Individuals with mild symptoms should self-quarantine and follow the guidance of their healthcare provider. All residents are strongly encouraged to practice social distancing and avoid large crowds. Drive-through testing will be implemented tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at Bergen Community College in lots B and C. It's operated by FEMA from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Healthcare workers and first responders will be tested even if they're not exhibiting symptoms as a precaution. And the criteria for the general public will be if you have symptoms and you are screened and proven to have symptoms, then you will be tested. If you are not exhibiting symptoms or asymptomatic, you will not be tested at this site. The last thing I have, Mayor, is any if you're witness to any price gouging by any retailers, please notify Consumer Affairs immediately at 201-336-6400.
Thank you, Mr. Foligno. Erin?
Yes, Mayor. Under the approval of minutes this evening, we have the November 8th, 2018 special work session meeting, November 8th, 2018 executive session, and November 8th, 2018 regular meeting minutes, along with November 29th, 2018 special meeting minutes. And for the record, the February 13th, 2020 work and executive session meetings and February 27th, 2020 regular meeting minutes are being tabled.
May I have a motion?
So moved. Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Abstain?
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingui,
Abstain.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
Abstain.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have two loan resolutions on the agenda tonight, with the first being R-127-20. Appoint Police Officer Michael Samarone. Be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that the following named be and is hereby appointed as a police officer in the Police Department of the Borough of Elmwood Park. Michael Samarone. Be it further resolved that remuneration is set at the rate as per the 2018 through 2025 PBA contract, which was effective March 15, 2018.
May I have a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingui,
I have to abstain because I have a family member who's a police officer.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
I have to abstain because I have a family member with the police department.
Motion carries. At this time, would Mr. Samarone please step up to the dais to be sworn in by Mayor Coletti as a police officer for the Borough of Elmwood Park, alongside Council Liaison Lorraine Pellegrin.
But Mike.
I
Michael Samarone,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same,
and to the governments
and to the governments
established
established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority
under the authority
of the people,
of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform all the duties of my office,
and justly perform all the duties of my office
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Okay, we normally have the whole council speak, but due to circumstances this evening, we're going to suspend with that, with the exception of our liaison to the police department, Lorraine Pellegrin, Councilwoman.
I just want to say congratulations. Welcome to our team. I wish you a long, safe, and successful career here in Elmwood Park. You're joining one of the best forces ever under the command of Chief Beligno, and we're so happy to have you, and we look forward to working with you. Congratulations to you and your family.
Yes, Michael, please.
Mike, welcome aboard. We have a strong unit here from the governing body all the way down to the rank and file police officers. We're a hardworking police department. We are community-oriented, and you know, I think you fit that mold very well, and we're going to be, it's a pleasure to have you join the force and work with us. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
See you bright and early tomorrow morning.
Michael, I would just like to add that you are coming on probably to one of the finest police forces in Bergen County. You have a no-nonsense chief, but he has a compassionate part of him that is second to none. So there's two forces there. We do what we have to do correctly, and you're going to be a shining star. Unfortunately, the circumstances of the evening doesn't allow for your family to be here, and we are sorry about that. But that comes down from the directive of the government.
Mayor?
Appreciate it.
All right. So go with Godspeed.
Mayor, excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
Can we have ceremony for him once we have an open meeting, that everybody can come, that we will have a proper ceremony for him and his family, please?
Yeah, I think that's a
you
great
deserve
idea.
Can you give him an air hug?
Would you like to do that at another date?
That would be amazing.
Would it be? Yes, I'd rather,
Parents actually came just for a ride. They just wanted to.
yeah, I wish we could be.
Tell him
We'll
we
make
said
it up
hello.
to them.
I will.
Yeah, tell them, yes, they will be here, I promise you.
His father's a chef, by the way.
Ah, okay.
All
But
right,
you,
Mike.
So that night, you can cook a banquet for us.
thank you.
Thank
Be
you.
safe,
Thank you,
please,
See you
be
tomorrow,
safe,
Mike.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
My pleasure.
The second resolution will require a public hearing. Resolution R-128-20, person-to-person, place-to-place liquor license transfer, 0211-33-025-008. Whereas an application has been filed for a person-to-person, place-to-place transfer of plenary retail consumption license 0211-33-025-008 heretofore issued to JGL Entertainment LLC. And whereas the submitted application form with the premises to be located at 100 Broadway, Unit 13 is complete in all respects. The transfer fees have been paid, and the license has been properly renewed for the current license term. And whereas the applicant is qualified to be licensed according to all standards established by Title 33 of the New Jersey statutes, regulations promulgated thereunder, as well conditions consistent with Title 33. And whereas the applicant has disclosed and the issuing authority reviewed the source of all funds used in the purchase of the license and the licensed business and all additional financing obtained in connection with the licensed business. And whereas there was an investigation by the local police department, and said investigation revealed that said new premises for licensing are located within 500 feet from another establishment holding a current liquor license. And whereas the above referred to investigation revealed that the premises is within the 500 distance from a plenary retail distribution license known as Metro Liquors, which is 180 feet away. And whereas the council has the right to place restrictive use on said transfer of license, and having considered the findings of the above investigation, concludes that a waiver of the 500 feet distance requirement would be reasonable and fair under the circumstance of this particular case. And whereas the council further finds that this waiver would not be detrimental to the health, safety, morals, and the general welfare of the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the governing body of Elmwood Park does hereby approve, effective March 19, 2020, the transfer of the aforesaid plenary retail consumption license to Hook and Reel Elmwood, Inc., and does hereby direct the municipal clerk to endorse the license certificate to the new ownership as follows. This license, subject to all its terms and conditions, is hereby transferred to Hook and Reel Elmwood, Inc., effective March 19, 2020.
May I have a motion to open the transfer application for a public hearing?
So move.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, for a brief moment, I will unmute the calls so that anyone wishing to make a statement on this resolution and this resolution only can be heard.
All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to be heard at this time?
This is Dominic Scalzione. That's it.
Hi, Dominic.
Hi, good evening. Is anybody ahead of me?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Is it possible for you to give us a little bit of background on what's happening here? Are they moving into this shopping center? Is this a retail store? Could you possibly give us a little bit of background?
Michael, would you care to respond to that?
Sure. Mr. Scalzione, it's a seafood restaurant that is acquiring a liquor license to sell liquor to the customers as an in-store, sit-down restaurant, not
I
packaged
think
goods.
you've already answered my question. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anything further? He's gone. Okay.
Would anyone else like to speak on this resolution and this resolution only?
If no one else wishes to be heard, I will close the public hearing. Mrs. Delaney?
All participants are muted.
Mayor, we can now call for a roll to vote on this resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingley.
Yes.
Pellegrin.
Yes.
Wetchler.
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to Resolution R-129-20, which brings us to our ordinances being introduced on first reading. Introduced ordinance number 20-10 on first reading. Be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the Borough of Elmwood Park, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing the code of Chapter 22 entitled Streets and Sidewalks, more specifically Section 22-3 entitled Curbs and Sidewalks, more specifically subsection 22-3.2 entitled Maintenance and Repairs, so as to include certain language clarifying the obligation and responsibility set forth therein under certain special circumstances, be passed and adopted on first reading, and be it resolved that a final hearing on said ordinance will be heard in the municipal building on Thursday, April 16, 2020 at 7:30 p.m., or as soon thereafter the same can be heard, at which time any persons interested in said ordinance can be heard. Be it further resolved that the borough clerk be and she is hereby authorized to advertise in a legal newspaper a notice of introduction and final hearing as required by law.
May I have a motion to introduce the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
First by Wetchler, second by Pellegrin. On roll call, Councilmembers Fasolo.
Yes.
Golubek.
Yes.
Ingley.
Yes.
Pellegrin.
Yes.
Wetchler.
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. Now for ordinances being introduced on second and final reading. Resolution R-130-20, introduced ordinance number 20-04 on second reading, whereas a public notice has been given by the Borough Clerk that an ordinance entitled Bond Ordinance to Authorize the Making of Various Public Improvements and the Acquisition of New Additional or Replacement Equipment and Machinery and New Automotive Vehicles, including original apparatus and equipment in by and for the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $2,585,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Whereas said ordinance was introduced and passed at a meeting held on Thursday, February 27, 2020, and that further consideration of this ordinance would be taken up at this meeting. And whereas all persons interested in said ordinance were given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that an ordinance entitled Bonds Ordinance to Authorize the Making of Various Public Improvements and the Acquisition of New Additional or Replacement Equipment and Machinery and New Automotive Vehicles, including original apparatus and equipment in by and for the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $2,585,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Passed on final hearing.
May I have a motion to open it to the public?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
At this time, I will unmute the phone so that anyone from the public can comment on this ordinance and this ordinance only.
All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to speak on this ordinance?
If no one wishes to be heard, I will close the public hearing. May I have a motion to
All
adopt,
participants are muted.
may I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
First by Wetchler, second by Pellegrin. On roll call, council members Fasolo.
Yes.
Golubek.
Yes.
Ingley.
Yes.
Pellegrin.
Yes.
Wetchler.
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-131-20, introduced ordinance number 20-05 on second reading. Whereas a public notice has been given by the Borough Clerk that an ordinance entitled Bond Ordinance to Authorize the Rehabilitation or Replacement of Water Mains and Lines at Various Locations in by and for the water utility of the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $240,000 to pay the cost thereof, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Whereas said ordinance was introduced and passed at a meeting held on Thursday, February 27, 2020, and that further consideration of this ordinance would be taken up at this meeting. And whereas all persons interested in said ordinance were given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. Now therefore be resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that an ordinance entitled Bond Ordinance to Authorize the Rehabilitation or Replacement of Water Mains and Lines at Various Locations in by and for the water utility of the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $240,000 to pay the cost thereof, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds, pass on final reading.
May I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
At this time, I will unmute the lines should anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance and this ordinance only.
All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to speak at this time?
If nobody wishes to be heard, I will close the public hearing. May I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
All participants
So
are
moved.
muted.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
On roll call, council members Fasolo.
Yes.
Golubek.
Yes.
Ingley.
Yes.
Pellegrin.
Yes.
Wetchler.
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-132-20, introduced ordinance number 20-06 on second reading. Whereas a public notice has been given by the Borough Clerk that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 34, Article 6, Bulk Requirements, Section 34-7.1 of the Code of the Borough, entitled Table of Use Regulations to ban short-term rental of dwellings for periods of 28 days in any and all zoning districts. Whereas said ordinance was introduced and passed at a meeting held on Thursday, February 27, 2020, and that further consideration of this ordinance would be taken up at this meeting, and whereas all persons interested in said ordinance were given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 34, Article 6, Bulk Requirements, Section 34-7.1 of the Code of the Borough, entitled Table of Use Regulations to ban short-term rental of dwellings for periods of 28 days in any and all zoning districts, pass on final reading.
Motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Delaney?
At this time, I will unmute the line so that anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance can do so.
All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to,
35 Plymouth Drive, Elmwood Park. I would just like to comment, this, former first reading, the word banned, I believe, should be banned.
okay?
Secondly, this says, to ban short-term rental of dwellings for periods of 28 days in any and all zoning districts. Now, since, in a single-family
Mr. Attorney, you want to answer that?
Based upon zoning in that particular, area,
Well, if it's a one-family zone,
all different things.
It's
With
a
the
one-family-
zone, by their very nature, ban that from happening to begin with. And shouldn't the ordinance be tailored to meet those zoning?
Is that Mr. Freitag? Mr. Freitag, got to allow our attorney to answer. I don't know if you can hear, he was trying to answer you.
can you hear me?
The only one I can hear is Eric, and I'd like to thank you for speaking into the microphone, because it's very difficult.
Can you hear,
Everyone else.
all right, can you hear me now? All right, let me see if you, can you hear me now?
Well, yes, I can.
Okay, with regards to the one-family use, at times, some people may utilize a one bedroom or whatever to actually rent it out. This actually covers every aspect in any zone. So the ordinance will cover even a one-family dwelling where one room is being rented.
You mean that I live in a one-family zone, I can currently rent a room?
No.
To someone?
No.
You just said that you can.
Excuse me?
You said you can together in a one-family zone.
No, you can't.
But as a room, you can, Steve, I'm sorry?
You cannot rent a one room to an outside, not a family member.
Okay. Well, I should say, not a family member, but if I'm collecting rent,
Jeff, our goal here,
whether you're a family member or not, correct?
Jeff,
You cannot collect any rent or have any relationship where it could be construed to be a landlord-tenant. Yes.
Jeff, what we're trying to do here is not,
Seeing that, I kind of, I don't want to play lawyer here, but I'm just asking, why are we including all zones? Shouldn't it just be the zones
Isn't this for
that are correct?
Airbnbs?
Jeff, can you hear me? This is Bob Coletti.
Excuse me?
Jeff, can you hear me?
Not very well.
But let me say this. What we're trying to do here is not to turn our town into a boarding house, and we're taking precautions by doing that. So that's our goal here.
Mr. Freitag, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, yes.
Okay, here's the scenario. It has been my experience that in other towns where there is let's say office building, okay? At times, because of the situation with regards to illegal occupancies, at times they allow to have these areas utilized for the purposes of a temporary overnight stay. This would cover even that aspect.
Okay, well, I wasn't talking about an office building, I was talking about a home.
Well, think about it, Jeff. Do we want everybody,
What I'm saying is, does this mirror other ones, I would assume it's built, well, another resolution from some other municipality.
It's mirrored with many other resolutions that I have reviewed and compiled to make this one particular resolution, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, this is Dominic Scalzione. May I go ahead?
yes, please, Dominic.
120 East 54th Street, Elmwood Park. Should it read 28 days or less? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said.
Read 28 days or less.
Should it read 28 days or less, is the question.
Mr. Attorney?
The reading, if you look at it, is or less than 28 days. The issue was whether we were going to make it, most other ordinances, it addresses a 30-day period. The council was concerned with that, so we made it a 28-day period, which covers the month of February, which is less than 30 days. So therefore, anything less than 28 days is not approved. Meaning 28 days or less, it actually reads in that sense.
So yes, it should say 28 days or less, so I will add those two words to the ordinance, Mr. Scalzione.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Just for clarification, that means someone can rent for 28 days or cannot?
Cannot.
Cannot rent for 28 days.
Consecutively.
Correct. You can't have any kind of rental agreement which covers 28 days.
Now, how about a 6-month agreement?
You have to do this in instances where people have leases that are month to month. You can't prohibit that, so that's why it's 28 days or less because of the month of February. Otherwise, you're limiting landlords, so that's what most towns have done for these short-term rental companies like Airbnb, etc.
Okay. Any other comments from the public? If not,
Joe Dobranowski, 274 Lincoln Avenue. I was just gonna say that, may I go forward?
Yes.
I was just gonna say that, with the day and age with Airbnb, people going online and renting rooms, I believe this ordinance does prevent them from doing that, so I applaud the council for going forward with this.
thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
We appreciate that. Anything else, Joe? Anyone else care to,
Thank you.
anyone else care to speak on this issue? If not, I will close the public hearing. Motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
All in agreement? Say aye.
Aye.
Erin?
On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingui,
Yes.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
Yes.
Council President Ballasteri.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-133-20, introduced ordinance number 20-07 on second reading, whereas a public notice has been given by the Borough Clerk that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 7 of the Code of the Borough of Elmwood Park titled Traffic, more specifically Section 7-8.3, titled Temporary No Parking for Snow Plowing and Removal. Whereas said ordinance was introduced and passed at a meeting held on Thursday, February 27, 2020, and that further consideration of this ordinance would be taken up at this meeting, and whereas all persons interested in said ordinance were given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same, now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 7 of the Code of the Borough of Elmwood Park titled Traffic, more specifically Section 7-8.3, titled Temporary No Parking for Snow Plowing and Removal, pass on final reading.
May I have a motion to open it to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone from the public like to be heard on this ordinance and this ordinance only?
If no one cares to speak from the public, I will close the public portion. Motion to close the public portion.
Participants are muted.
All in favor?
Mute themselves.
Mrs. Delaney, call the roll, please.
Was there a motion?
Yes, a motion to adopt, I'm sorry. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
So moved.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingui,
Yes.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
Yes.
Council President Ballasteri.
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolution R-134-20, introduced ordinance number 20-08 on second reading. Whereas a public notice has been given by the Borough Clerk that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Borough of Elmwood Park, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 6 of the Code of the Borough of Elmwood Park entitled Alcoholic Beverages Control, more specifically, Section 6-3.4, license fees for the increase in fee for liquor licenses. Whereas said ordinance was introduced and passed at a meeting held on Thursday, February 27th, 2020, and that further consideration of this ordinance would be taken up at this meeting. And whereas all persons interested in said ordinance were given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the Borough of Elmwood Park, County Bergen, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 6 of the Code of the Borough of Elmwood Park entitled Alcoholic Beverages Control, more specifically Section 6-3.4 license fees for the increase in fee for liquor licenses, pass on final reading.
May I have a motion to open for public
So
hearing?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
Mayor, through you, may I just make a brief comment on this ordinance?
Absolutely.
Before we advertised for the public hearing of this ordinance, which is why it wasn't tabled, but before anyone from the public speaks, I do just want to say that it is the pleasure of the mayor and council to vote down this ordinance this evening, given certain circumstances and strains that have been placed on our businesses here in the Borough of Elmwood Park. With that being said,
I'm sorry, I have just a question. Didn't we get a comment on this that has to be read into the record, or is that no?
during the public comment section.
Which you will read, or the
I will
resident?
read,
Oh,
yes.
gotcha. Sounds good.
So at this point, I will open up to the public, should anyone still wish to speak on this ordinance.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to speak on this ordinance?
Jeffrey Freitag, 3545. Is that right? Is both? I'm sorry? Somebody just said something. Okay. Regardless. The proposed increase in many cases will be $500. Even in good economic times, this is quite a sizable increase. Considering the tough economic times that most retail establishments are currently facing, I feel that this increase is very untimely. Therefore, I'm against it. Considering the fact that the statement that Ms. Delaney read, it would seem that the council, I don't know if that is a failed statement to say something or to not decline, but I guess everyone is heard. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freitag. Point well taken.
Background noise.
Well,
The background noise is inevitable because of the multiple callers, so that's why I do mute the phone once it's not open to a public hearing.
we heard you pretty clearly, though, Jeff. Anything else there, Jeff?
No, that's it, thank you.
Anyone else care to speak from the public? If not, I will close the public hearing.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute them.
May I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
There's no second.
Second. Yeah, we have
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
second.
Discussion.
Yes, Mayor, if I may. And I'm not yelling, I'm just inflecting for the public. Obviously, I'll be voting no based on the current situation, based on the closures and the different restrictions. However, in a situation where everything in society in Elmwood Park is normal, I think it would be a fair increase, and I think and I hope as things settle down, this is something we can revisit for next year so that we're on par with other communities and we're not leaving revenue that these businesses, most of them can easily make off the table to offset taxes for our residents. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Daniel. Anybody else care to speak?
I agree with Dan 100%. I think right now is not the time to raise anybody at the hard times that we're having. So I'm voting no too.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? With that, discussion's over. Call the roll, please.
First by Pellegrin, second by Ingwe. On roll call, council members Fasolo.
No.
Golubek.
No.
Ingwe.
No.
Pellegrin.
No.
Wetchler.
No.
Council President Balistrary.
No.
Motion fails. That's all I have for ordinances this evening. For tonight's consent agenda, we have the following resolutions. R-135-20, approval of payroll. R-136-20, approval of bills list. R-137-20, 2020 temporary emergency budget appropriations. R-138-20, authorize emergency repair services, J. Fletcher Creamer and Sons, Inc. R-139-20, authorize current estimate number 1, 2019 road program, D&L Paving Contractors, Inc. R-140-20, appoint substitute ASP teacher, Ashley Hickswaw, Recreation Department. R-141-20, awarding bid for solid waste collection. R-142-20, authorize the execution of professional planning consulting contract topology. R-143-20, appointment of information technology professional, Intrep Solutions, LLC. R-144-20, appoint substitute crossing guards, Police Department. R-145-20, appoint part-time keyboarding clerk 1, Doreen Aspris, Tax Department. R-146-20, authorize Recreation Department refunds. R-147-20, authorize increase in salary, Recreation Department, Donna Puglisi. R-148-20, approve retirement compensation, Tax Department, Frank Santora. R-149-20, approve retirement compensation, DPW, Albert Ruth. R-150-20, approve retirement compensation, Police Department, David Myers. R-151-20, accept sidebar to collective negotiations agreement, white collar, blue collar. R-152-20, accept sidebar to collective negotiations agreement, white collar, blue collar. R-153-20, authorize increase in hourly wage, Fire Prevention Department. R-154-20, redeem third-party tax lien. R-155-20, resolution to refund overpayment. R-156-20, resolution to refund overpayment. R-157-20, reappoint rent leveling board secretary Marlene DeStefano. R-158-20, authorize purchase of taser equipment, Axon Enterprises, Inc. Police Department. R-159-20, authorize purchase of radio equipment, Northeast Communications Fire Department. R-160-20, authorize change order numbers 1 and 2, Pierce Fire Apparatus, Fire and Safety Services. R-161-20, various appointments of firefighters. R-162-20, resolution approving the Elmwood Park Police Department to participate in the Department of Defense 1033 program. R-163-20, appointment to Board of Health. R-164-20, adjustment to zoning board appointments. R-165-20, initiate property tax appeals. R-166-20, resolution renaming the Little League fields in the Borough of Elmwood Park as Veterans Ballpark. R-167-20, a resolution authorizing the Borough Administrator to create, institute, adopt, implement, and enforce policies, rules, and amend all existing policies and codes of conduct of all borough employees. R-168-20, resolution to approve the consent agenda.
May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Aaron, I'd like to table 2 of them, please.
You'd like a motion to table
table.
2 ordinances?
Yes,
All right,
please.
may I have the number of the first one?
Right, the first one is R-163-20,
Okay, so that would be
appointment of Board of Health.
appointment to Board of Health. Councilwoman Wetchler is making a motion to table that. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor. May I ask the council people why we're tabling this?
Because it hasn't been discussed with a few members that had asked me about going over everything with it. So I figured it can go to the next work meeting, and then we could discuss it. And-
Councilwoman, wasn't this your idea with the mayor
Yes, it
to
was,
appoint
but
this
2
person?
members of the council approached me that they were not having, that was not discussed with them, and they asked if they could discuss it. And I was out last week being sick, so I had no time to talk to anybody.
I also just have a question too. I thought that this was already a discussion, and we got this agenda on Tuesday, and no one has discussed it about tabling it until tonight.
Well, I've been out, so I'm
We,
sorry.
the way our form of government works is that certain board appointments are mayor's appointment with advice and consent of the council. We received a vacancy from the health board several weeks ago, and I know it was discussed with everyone who the nomination would be to the Board of Health. Everyone knew that. Everyone knew that. Let's not play games. I think we have to operate in good faith. When we did the reorg, I, as outgoing mayor, sat with Mayor Coletti and went through the appointments and went through the board appointments. I sat back down with the council, and we went back and forth and hashed everything out, and we shook hands, and we said, we're going into this meeting, and we are going to, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to be clean. Similar agreements and deals were made here, and now, out of the blue, this is being tabled.
Well,
I
I'm
think,
sorry.
if I can finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I think that we're operating in bad faith. I think if you believe, we have a vacancy. If you believe, and everyone knows Mrs. Freitag, she's very qualified to serve on the Board of Health. I mean, I worked with her on the Board of Education, so I speak to that. But I believe professionally, she worked for UMD&J, the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. So let's not say that we need a resume or anything here. If we believe she's qualified, vote yes. If we believe she shouldn't be on the board, vote no. But to table and to stall, I think,
No.
says that there's something more to this. And I hope, I dear God hope, that outside influences aren't playing games here and trying to influence what this council does, because that would be very wrong. And I hope that's not at play here. I hope that the things I hear are completely false and people are just making them up. Either we believe Ms. Freitag is qualified to be on the health board or not. Thank you.
Jenny, that was not my intention at all about saying she's not qualified. My intention was, I was not here at last week's meeting, I was sick. I did not get to discuss it with two council people about what I did. So that I will take on myself. But don't dare say to me that I ever said that Jean was never
I never said that.
qualified. You just did
No,
say
what
it.
I'm saying is that here's what it is. The mayor puts a name forward to the council, and
Right.
this isn't somebody we have no knowledge of. It's either you agree or you don't. I don't remember ever, personally, I've been going to meetings for 10 years, that an appointment was tabled from a council meeting so the council could discuss it in a work session, because this would be a public discussion. It would not be an executive discussion. There's nothing executive
I didn't
about.
say it was going to be an executive, I said
Right.
work meeting. I didn't say an
So,
executive meeting.
does anyone else want to share why they think that this shouldn't go up for a yes or no vote, since Councilman Wetchler is not the one that has an issue with this?
I don't have an issue with it, Daniel. I just said I wasn't here
You're
to
saying,
discuss everything.
you're saying you're not the
one.
one with the issue, so I can
Okay.
respect that. Does anyone else want to state their issue?
I think the concern here is getting everybody on the same page, because everybody's a little bit confused about what's going on. So I think it's just to get everybody on the same page, and nobody's voting it down. We're just
Well,
saying we need a little
yeah,
more
just
time.
feel like
you're buying time.
In this time, I feel that she should be appointed to the Board of Health. We need a Board of Health. We need a full Board of Health right now, more than anything else. And she is definitely qualified for the position. And like I said, we saw it on Tuesday. And I think that there was some other discussion about it a month or so ago when we were appointing people to other boards. So I feel that this was something that was already.
Everyone knew that this was happening weeks ago.
The only
That's a
thing-
fact.
If I could say something, the only thing I would say is to any of my colleagues that are sitting up here, if they ask something to be tabled, I would say yes to it and have the discussion at the next work meeting. I would do that for each and every one of you. So if two of my colleagues want something tabled, I would vote to hear them out at the next work meeting.
Anybody else?
No, I agree. If someone wants something tabled, out of respect, we would table it, and just for more discussion.
Anyone else? I'd like to say a few words on the situation here.
Mr. Flood, actually, I just have one more word. I know, I
Yeah,
thought you were going
no-
to look this way and
No,
say.
go right ahead.
I support each of us when things need to be tabled or when they need to be discussed. I don't feel that this is something that should be tabled or needs any discussion, and that's where I'm just going to end it at that.
I mean, also, I just want to say, as far as Jean, absolutely qualified, but also, Fava was also very qualified, and she was asked to resign. But again, I don't want the discussion here. I agree, let's have another discussion on this.
Well, the tabling process was made and put into effect to allow us to discuss things further when there's doubt. But this particular item was carved in stone weeks ago, and to bring it to this point, 3 months ago, we were scratching our heads looking for qualified members to these boards. Last year, we had a couple boards that, because there wasn't a quorum there, people that want to be there and are qualified, a couple of the boards had to be canceled. Now, we've worked diligently, like Daniel had said, all through the process of bringing these board members to the selection. We were bipartisan all through it. I thought we did well up until this point. This is very discouraging to think that we did have an arrangement. An arrangement is being pulled back. And that's, I think Mr. Gollenbeck hit it right on the head when he said you're delaying something. You're all saying she's qualified. Everyone here is saying she's qualified, so let's just put it to rest and put it to a vote.
Well, also the person that resigned, which I didn't know she was resigning that day, because we were going to have a conversation to find out what happened, what transpired between two council people and yourself, not the entire council. We never discussed it as an entire council. This was just a discussion and a decision between two. And so we pulled somebody from there. It wasn't an open seat. I understand if it's an open seat, but it wasn't. We actually had somebody resign that was doing, at my understanding, did a phenomenal job there.
Yes.
And I couldn't even expect that she wouldn't have, to replace her. It's not that it was an open seat that we're arguing over. So she's just asking for
Well, that was
discussion, that's all.
That was the arrangement made by the two on the end over there, Mr. Fasolo and Mrs. Wetchler. That was the agreement that would be made, that if the three appointments went on to the rec board, I had a difference with one of them. They said, well, if the three can go on the rec board, then what we could possibly do is have Mrs. Fava resign, and at that point, then it would open the seat. And that's just how it came down. And there was some thought about the fact that it might have been a conflict of interest, being that she's an employee and serving on a board, which I don't think it is, Mr. Attorney, right? So that's not really, doesn't come into play here. But that's exactly what happened, the truth of the matter. We shouldn't even be here tonight discussing this. It is demoralizing for me because up to this point, there was complete trust that we had bonded here in the past. And now, I don't know if that trust is totally still here. And I have 3 3/4 years ahead of me, God willing, and I tell you, I dread the thought of not being able to trust my colleagues here.
It wasn't the point of, Mayor, of being trusted. It was the point that I did not get a chance to talk to Mrs. Fava before you went up and asked her for her resignation. That was my whole problem, because I was out sick for a week.
Never asked her for her resignation. What I did was, I told her the story, step by step. That's what I did. And then she volunteered and said, don't worry about it, Mayor, I will resign.
But I did not get the chance to speak to her because I was out sick. That's why I was asking you to,
About
for her
what?
to table it.
She
You
was-
went to her and told her what was going on before I got the opportunity to ask her to
Well,
resign.
I thought inadvertently I was on a call with her, and I took advantage of the moment to bring the truth out.
Mrs.
It
Wexler.
was not going to be a lie. It was not going to be a lie, Mayor. I was going to her, but I'm sorry but that I was out sick, that I could not come up and talk to her ahead of time.
Okay.
Mrs. Wetchler, the same discussion that the mayor is talking about is the same discussion that I had with two of the council people too, with the recreation board, once that was set, that Mrs. Freitag would then be going on to the Board of Health. I have had that same discussion, so.
Everyone knew what was happening. Something else happened in between where everyone's backpedaling. And frankly, to Mrs. Pellegrin's point about respecting her colleagues to table something, I distinctly remember there were email chains about tabling something at the last public meeting, and you were the only one that didn't want to go along with tabling a matter, and the rest of your colleagues did. So I find that a little bit hypocritical.
What are you referring to? We all wanted it not tabled last meeting.
The
last
admonishments
public-
over
The
email,
admonishments,
you
we
were
all agreed to not want it tabled. I agreed to not have.
correct.
it
And I'm not
tabled.
talking about here at the meeting. I'm talking about way before the meeting. You were the only one, when all your colleagues said, yes,
I
it should be
disagree with
tabled.
you. I disagree with you.
Well, then that's in writing, and maybe we'll have to look at the record.
I think we should just stick to the topic here,
Yes.
so it doesn't get
Yeah, it seems
convoluted.
like we're attacking people for no
I
reason.
think when statements are made that are clearly incorrect, they have to be corrected.
Okay. I think we have a tabling
Can we just,
motion,
I was going to say, can we just
so
go
we
into a
should vote
vote?
on it.
Mrs. Delaney, where are we at?
So, Mayor, we have a motion to table R-163-20 by Ms. Wetchler and a second by Mr. Fasolo. So if you would like to entertain a roll call.
We went through discussion, roll call, please.
Okay, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
No.
Ingwe,
No.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
Yes.
Council President Ballasteri.
Yes.
All right.
Resolution R-163-20 will be tabled, and Ms. Wetchler, you stated that there was a second resolution.
R 164-20. On the,
Okay, so R-164-20, adjustment to zoning board appointments. Is there a second to table that resolution as well?
Second.
Mr. Mayor, would you like to entertain a discussion?
Yes, definitely. I think this is very surprising also. Let's, any discussion
To me
on,
too, Mayor.
on the tabling process?
yes.
What's the reason this time?
What's the reason? Well, Kenny Van Ryn has his term to 2022, and all of a sudden, Mr. James Golubisky his appointment is over at 2020, and now all of a sudden you're flipping them. Why? Why would you take Kenny Van Ryn, 2022, to Mr. Golubisky, who only has his term to this year?
Mayor, through you, may I answer? Ms. Councilwoman Wetchler,
Yes.
this was actually proposed by the two individuals that are on the board. So Mr. Van Ryn asked to, I guess because of his scheduling, be an alternate, and in that place, then the alternate, Mr. Golubisky, would take his current term.
But there was no resignation letter from him, and he's not
A
aware that this
resignation
was a vote
isn't
tonight.
needed because he would still be on the board.
But he's actually just an alternate, though. And he's not aware that this was going to go on an agenda tonight,
Who's not aware?
Mr. Van Ryn.
Absolutely is. I spoke with Mr. Van Ryn, and he said that time is of the essence for him. He's very busy. He doesn't get to the meetings. Once again, they have a lack of a quorum in certain situations, and the meetings have to be canceled. It's our job to get people that are going to be there and qualified that can vote. And that was the essence of this whole flip, as it's
So
been.
has he not been in meetings that hasn't had a quorum? Is that what we're saying?
What we're saying is we want to take a member that is not voting, and that's there. He has to be there. He's a secretary. He's going to be there automatically. We need that person to be able to vote in order to avoid in the future having situations like.
No, but has Ken not been available? Because I know in the past, last year, said that he wasn't at meetings, and he had all the minutes saying, I was at all these meetings.
Sandy,
No,
he
said-
doesn't, this came from his lips.
Right, okay,
He
but
does, he
did-
wants to
I
change his
just-
status to a alternate and give that status to Jimmy.
I just saw this on the agenda yesterday, because I didn't get to it on Tuesday when I received it. I spoke to him, he did not know this was going on the agenda this evening, so what am I supposed to hear now? He's telling me he didn't know it was going on the agenda.
So what is
It was
that?
just a discussion, he said. They just had a discussion. It wasn't, he didn't know it was going on tonight's agenda to make the switch, because maybe his availability became different since of all this that happened. I don't know, no, I'm
We're
telling you.
really
I had a
going fishing
discussion.
here.
Really?
Mrs.
I just
Delaney,
spoke to him.
what
What am I
was,
supposed to do,
you
vote
spoke,
against?
excuse me, you spoke with Mr. Van Ryn and Jimmy on this occasion? Could you repeat what that conversation was like?
I spoke with Mr. Golubisky about this,
Okay, okay.
Not Ken Van Ryn?
Not Ken Van.
not Ken Van Ryn
Was
directly.
Mr. Van Ryn against this, or just did not know this was on the agenda? Those
He
are two-
actually mentioned, I think he'd like to come to a council meeting, a work meeting, and speak about it. He did not expect this on the agenda, so to me, maybe they had a conversation, absolutely. He said there was a conversation, but he didn't know that this was going on the agenda tonight. So how do I say, do we vote on it? Erin just said she didn't speak to him.
I
You just
did.
asked him.
Okay.
Okay,
I spoke with him,
and I did as well.
and he was adamant that this was a smart thing to do, and he would gladly do it.
Well, I'm just telling you, I just spoke to him today. So, I guess if whoever doesn't want to table, won't table. But I'm not, if he's saying he didn't know what's going on the agenda tonight, I have to go with that. This is the person telling me. I'm not making it up.
What are you saying, that he did not agree to this? Are you saying
That's
that?
not what I said.
Okay, well, okay, he doesn't know what's on the agenda, like Mr. Gollenbeck said. What does that mean? To
And
this
he-
meeting, what does that mean?
And if you would have said to me, he actually spoke to Erin, and Erin said, yes, I spoke to Ken as well, both of them, and they both agreed to
Well,
it.
I am telling you that I spoke to him and had that conversation. Now, are you saying I'm making that up?
Mayor, you don't put words in my mouth. I'm
Okay.
telling you, I had a conversation. So going by my conversation, I'm fine with tabling it. It's not saying I don't have a problem with either person. I have no problem. It's the fact that if a table came up and he wants to, maybe he decided he's not going to do it. I don't know. I have no idea.
So what do you recommend? We bring Kenny down here? That's the only way we're going to trust anyone to hear it right from his own lips?
I don't know. If he has something to say, whether he said he can't do it, or maybe he's able to do it, I don't know. He just said he
See,
didn't know
this
what's
is,
going on tonight's
okay, I
agenda.
just want the
That's all. I
public to
don't wanna
know.
get this
This
straight.
is why
crazy.
last year we had to cancel meetings because of rhetoric like this that's going on. Okay, what do we
But not
have here?
because of Kenny, though, right?
What do we have here? We have a table motion first,
First and second.
and who's seconding it?
Me.
You second it?
Are we having discussion about it before? Can I make a statement?
Yes, you can.
Okay, sorry. This is another thing that it's taking me by surprise, and I'm upset about it because I feel like it's another block towards Jimmy Golembiski.
No, it's
I feel that's what I feel in my heart. I hadn't had no discussions with Ken Van Rye or anything. I saw it on the agenda, didn't think much of it. This person we removed from a board after all his years of service, continues to still want to be on this board, would not have had all the issues we had about not having a quorum had he remained on the board, and now we're blocking it yet again. I just don't understand. I'm just confused by the last two things that we're doing, and that's my 2 cents.
Councilman, it
I
has nothing to
apologize.
do with Jimmy, because we did vote
But if
him in.
Kenny,
If it did have to do, he
if
would have never been
Kenny's
voted
telling the
in.
mayor he doesn't want that, and Kenny and Jimmy are both saying we're going to flip, and this is a discussion that they had, then why are we stopping it? Why are we
But
stopping it? It's not
if-
going to be then put on until next month. Like, why are we?
But they're both still on regardless. So it's not that he's being told.
The visual of it, to me, is another, is
Well,
a Jimmy
that-
issue.
you know
The
what,
same with this.
that's wrong, because the
I
visual, I have to
apologize,
say,
because the
is
same
wrong.
thing with the Board of Health. You know, I
It's
have
wrong. The
plenty of
visual
things
is
going.
absolutely wrong.
I hope I'm wrong, because
No,
I feel like,
absolutely not.
I am included in these conversations when they go in the direction that they need to go, and discluded from conversations when they go in a direction that you know I may
I
have.
just saw this yesterday, and I was like, what, why is that? He just got appointed, he's only been on a year, I believe, and now, what's the switch? I know last year, there were concerns, or there was comments saying that he was not making meetings, and, you know, I looked at them, pulled out all those minutes, and for the whole year, and yes, he was at those meetings. There were people absent that could not make it, they didn't have a quorum, just like we had at the Board of Rec, but it wasn't him. So that would definitely be a concern if it was. But all I know is he did not know this was on the agenda for tonight. Not saying that this can't happen, but that's how, you know, if somebody tells me they didn't know they were on the agenda, and it was just a conversation. Sometimes people have conversations, but maybe he didn't know we're going to act on it.
We're trying to
I
run a
don't know.
government here.
Okay, well-
And you're giving us conversations and hypotheticals that he doesn't know about this being on the agenda, but did he say that it was wrong, that he did not want to flip positions for the benefit of the town? That's what's at stake here.
So that's why he's doing it, because he's not able to make the meetings, and he's.
Correct. And
Well,
he,
that's not what was said to me, but if it was for the benefit of the town, that's a different story, but that's not what I heard. That's not what was said to me.
okay, well, I don't know.
And it's nothing to do with Jimmy, so that's wrong. That's wrong to even say that, really.
Okay, so what do you suggest to resolve the problem?
Well, they're both on there regardless, so, now, let me just ask.
Going to table this to have discussion on this? Is that
Well,
basically?
you know, just like Denise said, she didn't know this was happening. I didn't even know something like this was going on, because I'm like, what is this? I had no idea that there was any conversation. I was just like.
Okay, so what should
And
we do?
well,
What-
Doris asked for a tabling motion, so.
Okay. And then we're going to table this to go into discussion at a,
Well, maybe we should make sure that they're both on board with it. If they're both on
I'm
board with it.
convinced of my conversation with both of them,
Well, I didn't
that
have a
there's no,
conversation with both.
so it's up to you
Right.
to bring this to the surface on whether they, what you're doubting is true in fact.
But they're both on right now, so just say if Ken misses a meeting, does Jimmy go in as an alternate? Or no?
What would happen here, Sandy, this is what's going on.
Okay.
Mr. Van Rye, he is a councilman here of, I think he's got the record
Yes.
in terms of years. He knows government. He knows when he's supposed to be at a meeting and he can't be, that's not right. He had reached out and said to Jimmy that, well, if you'd like to flip, because Jimmy wants to be able to vote, and to be totally honest. And he cannot vote now, which I think is a detriment to us because Jimmy's always there. We need that guaranteed vote, one way or another. And he has the knowledge.
Right.
Kenny realized that Jimmy can be there more often than him, and that he would step down and flip. He would become the alternate, and Jimmy would become the voting member.
Okay.
And that's exactly what's the situation is.
But I like to just make sure that that's exactly how, I don't have a problem whether it's Jimmy or if it was somebody else's name on here. And I don't care what anybody says. It has nothing to do with that because he would have been an alternate if there was a problem with that. And we did put him on as an alternate. So obviously we all, and that was unanimous that he went on. So my question is just to find out between both of them, is this an agreement with both of them to go on an agenda and vote to make the switch? Because like I said, and even if I didn't have a conversation, I would say, well, gee, man, I have a question on this.
Okay.
But then I can't ask you a question because you don't return my call.
Well, the last call I had with you was an hour and a half, and I actually didn't have that much time. Anyhow, and I'm sorry about not returning your call, but that was the reason. I didn't have that
No, that wasn't
long
the
time.
reason. I asked you I said I had one specific question about the Rosemont Park, and I did say that in the
Yeah,
message.
well, I thought
And you said, no,
I
I
thought that
wasn't
was a
gonna return.
mask to get
Well,
into
see
the
what I'm saying?
conversation.
Well, you thought wrong, see?
Obviously, it did. In any case, where are we?
Would, we have a motion and a second to table, Mayor, so unless anyone else has anything to add, we
No
could
more
do a roll call.
discussion? Call the roll on the
Oh, wait,
tabling.
1 second. Want it settled tonight? Get Van Ryan on the phone and ask him himself personally.
That's not
There.
appropriate.
Well,
That's
there.
not appropriate. That's
Well,
not
you know what,
appropriate.
Dan? But that's it, because you're going to sit here and argue with that
Councilman,
ridiculous too.
that's not appropriate.
Yeah,
Well,
no, we should just,
It's not appropriate.
you're just sitting there
We'll-
arguing.
What you're saying is you don't believe the conversation I had with Kenny.
Well, she's saying this, she said she spoke to him and she said
Yeah.
he didn't say that.
and we didn't, listen,
So
I just saw
there.
this Wednesday night, so as Councilwoman Ingwe said, she was surprised by anything. I was surprised that there was a switch, because he seemed very interested in that, and I do know Jimmy as well. He's very good at what he does in there too. That's not even a question in my mind at all.
Okay.
But
So what you're saying, you think that you're going to have to clear this up between you and Kenny?
No, I'm not saying, we gotta just clear up to make sure that both are on board, that's all, not me. What do I have to clear up?
Because you're the one that's doubting.
Listen, she
or-
asked,
or-
okay,
well,
so.
all of yous.
All
of
my
us, all of
question
us.
was, why was Kenny Van Ryan taken from 2022 to 2020 and Mr. Gullivan? I don't know, I know Kenny from years ago. I don't know him personally anymore. All I asked is a question, the table, to find out an answer. That's all I wanted to do. It didn't matter who did it, as long as the two gentlemen decided that they wanted to do it. You said one thing, she said another thing. It needs to be just straightened out. Is it one way or the other way, and that's it. Erin said that she talked to Jimmy, but she didn't talk to Kenny. Erin would have said, I spoke to Mr. Van Ryan, I spoke to Mr. Gallimbisky, and they both agreed. I'd say, fine, no problem, just go for it.
I think we should vote.
Okay.
Well, it's tabled.
But I just want you to know that I
Roll call for the
spoke to
table.
both of them, and they both gave their blessings on this, just so you know that.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Well, yes,
Mayor.
you are.
No,
You
I'm
certainly
not.
are.
She's
Why are we gonna
saying
keep
one
arguing?
thing
Can
and
we
you're
move
saying
on to the
another
vote,
thing.
please?
All right, call the roll.
Council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
No.
Ingwe,
No.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler.
Yes.
Council President Palisteri. Resolution R-164-20 is also tabled.
Thank you, Erin.
Before, if I may, Mayor, review of the resolution being tabled in this instance, can I make a suggestion that resolutions would be prepared, one, that Mr. Van Rye would resign and be appointed for the term
We don't do resignation resolutions for boards, we just accept their resignation letters.
Well, I don't know whether we is what we do, but I'm suggesting it so that it's a lot more clearer.
Do we get anything from Kenny, Erin, on this?
No, because it was just a swap, not a resignation, but typically, past practice is we receive a resignation letter from a member of a board, and there's no resolution about that resignation, that spot is just filled.
Mayor, maybe we should just have him write an email or something, just so everybody's on board.
That's what I just said.
Just have him send an email tomorrow.
So, Erin, when somebody does resign from a position to go into another spot, on both ends, shouldn't there be a resignation from both? And then, once the resignation comes in, then they just get reappointed to the opposite?
Alternate, yeah.
Yeah, the alternate positions?
If that's your pleasure.
Because when I saw this on there, I said, gee, I looked back and I didn't see a resignation letter. Because I would thought he would resign from his full-time position and go on as an alternate. I never saw that.
I'm making the suggestion.
Right,
So that
right, that's what,
it's clearer.
I'm saying that's what I think brought attention to this. There was no, like with Angela Fava, there was a resignation
I'm
letter.
just making a recommendation, that's all I'm doing.
It's tabled, right?
It's tabled.
I suggest we just pick it up at the work session.
So if we have it.
Okay, so we have a first on the consent agenda from Councilman Golubek and a second from Councilwoman Wetchler, with the exception of resolutions R-163-20 and R-164-20.
Okay.
Shall I call the roll, Mayor?
Call the roll.
Council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingui.
Yes, but I have to abstain from a few, so bear with me.
Mhm.
I will abstain on R-135-20, the check for Aviana Ingwe only. I will abstain on R-144-20, 150-20, 158-20, 162-20, and yes for all the rest.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
I'd like to recuse myself on R-135-20 on Harry Wetzel's check, and R-147-20 on Donna Pugliese. Recuse myself, please, because of Harry, an employee, and yes to the rest.
Council President Ballasteri.
I abstain on R-127-20, R-144-20.
I'm sorry,
R-
127?
I'm sorry, 127-20?
That's not on,
Oh, what am I doing? Oh.
that was already done.
I'm sorry, okay. 144-20, R-150-20, R-158-20, and R-162-20, and yes on the rest.
Motion carries. Lastly, under departmental reports, we have the Library Board meeting minutes from January 27, 2020, and the Recreation Advisory Board meeting minutes from December 16, 2019.
Motion to accept and file the reports.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingui.
Yes.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler.
Yes.
And Council President Ballasteri.
Yes.
Motion carries.
In an attempt to shorten the length of this evening's meeting, there will be no council reports or mayor's reports. So that'll bring us right to the public hearing. May I have a move on a motion to open for public comment?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
Okay, Mayor, for the record, we have some residents that have submitted their questions in advance. So if it's okay with you, I will proceed with reading those first individually.
Absolutely. Do we want to try to answer each one separately per number?
I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, and if we can't, I just hope the parties that it concerns would be understanding with us. Go ahead, Mrs. Delaney.
Okay, so first we have from Mr. Daniel Flank. Dear Mayor and Council, my name is Daniel Flank and I live on Donor Avenue in Elmwood Park. I have the following statement and questions for the Mayor and Council. I want to thank Councilman Fasolo for creating the app that has helped me with being informed on trash pickup. I was always missing my garbage takeout and this was really helpful. This really will help me. Kudos to you. 2, with this whole coronavirus going on, I'm an old gent that's asking if the trash man or woman can get my garbage for me, throw it away, and then bring it right back to my stoop. Is this possible? Thank you in advance. 3, oh, okay.
I think we should comment on,
Okay.
number one, kudos to Mr. Fasola.
Thank you.
That has nothing to do with the dog situation, though. In reference to this, I don't know if anybody here is qualified to answer the distance that the dog shed should be away from the front stoop.
We're on number 2, Mayor, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
Number 2, we're on.
Yes.
With the trash and picking up the trash.
Oh, okay. I jumped the gun. In reference to that, I think at this point, if we did that, we'd be setting a precedent, and then everyone in the town would be asking to do the same thing. So I don't think that is something that we can do. Does anybody care to comment on that?
Mayor, if I may, I don't think the garbage companies will go on private property anyway.
I don't think they're allowed to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to number 3. What are the height and setback restrictions for a dog house on my front lawn, close to my stoop? I think about these things just in case the young fellow is not immune to the virus.
I don't even think there's an ordinance on the books regarding this question. This is completely unique. I think it's something that we would have to follow up with the building department. Michael, you'll have them look into it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
4, am I able to play music on my exterior house speakers during the coronavirus purge during 8 p.m. and 5 a.m.?
Once again, this is unprecedented in the sense that I don't think there's an answer for that at this particular moment. Do you,
Answer that, Mayor.
you can?
Yes, you can play music at any time as long as it's not disturbing your neighbors in the exterior of your home.
Okay. Can I recommend Frank Sinatra?
You can.
Okay. Or Golden Oldies, would appreciate it.
Okay, and Mr. Flank ends with saying, all of these questions mean a lot to me, and I appreciate you answering them all. Moving on to the second submission, from Mr. Freitag on Hillman Drive, I would appreciate it if the following questions, comments can be read into the record at the March 19, 2020 Mayor and Council meeting. On R-134-20 second reading, introduced ordinance number 20-08. Again, this is mainly for the record. The proposed increase in many cases would be $500. Even in good economic times, this is quite a sizable increase. Considering the tough economic times that most retail establishments are currently facing, I feel that this increase is very untimely.
I think the vote this evening is self-explanatory to the question.
Number 2, has any action been taken by the library board regarding the award of a change order for the electrical service? I understand that the library board did not meet on March 16th to possibly take action on this matter. I believe in a situation such as the COVID-19 national health emergency, it would certainly permit action by the board to be taken as most boards' bylaws permit.
I don't think there's anybody here capable of answering that. Am I correct? Michael, do you have any knowledge of that?
I have no idea what the library
Yeah.
decided on that. I know everything's been approved from the building department standpoint. We're waiting on if the library is going to expend the funds to put the fire-rated ceiling in the elevator room. That's all we're waiting on.
Yeah. And Mr. Freitag, you got to give us a pass on this. In the wake of the recent events that have occurred, everybody is sort of at a tilt. And we'll see if we can get an answer for you on this shortly.
Number 3, at last week's mayor and council work meeting, 3/12/20, the BA, Mike Foligno, brought up that the EP taxpayers would be funding, as was done in 2019, Patterson police officers to patrol the area of East Side Park. Please see the attached article from 5/24/19, where Police Chief BA Foligno is quoted as saying, "It is up to Patterson elected officials to find a long-term fix for this. In my opinion, this should not be paid for by the taxpayers or drug money." Please note that we have the article attached separately as well.
Mr. Freitag, let me say this. I think you know me as a conservative and kind of frugal, but there are times when that belt has to be loosened. I see this as an extension of our police department without having to hire additional police officers, a cheap way of resolving the noise problem. So taking that all into consideration, and also being down there when this music was coming across the river, I can only imagine that the people who were pulling their hair out will continue to pull their hair out. So with that in consideration, I think the money we're spending is well spent. Anybody else care to comment on that? Yes, yes.
I still feel that Patterson should come up with a long-term solution, but they haven't. So what's the alternative? Do nothing, not pay the funds and have our residents disturbed, quality of life? So this is option two, and I think it's a good second option. Thank you, Mayor.
Agreed.
Okay, moving on to our third. Mayor Coletti, according to County Executive Jim Tedesco, and this is from Dominic Scalcione of East 54th Street, according to County Executive Jim Tedesco at today's news conference, Bergen now has over 200 COVID-19 cases, with 80 new reported cases today and at least one in Elmwood Park. Question 1, if tests confirm a borough resident is positive, which agency has the task to investigate? If this is an Elmwood Park responsibility, do we have the resources to investigate, or do you plan to use staff from other agencies?
Michael, are you capable of answering that? Please.
Yes, Mayor. It is not an Elmwood Park situation to investigate. It is handled by the county and state health departments.
And then question 2, is some method similar to the RAP under consideration to provide neighbor-to-neighbor help if a resident runs out of food, medicine, or other essential items?
Michael, would you care to?
We do not have anything in place right now. I think that's something that we can discuss. We have to take a lot of other factors into consideration, and we don't want to expose anyone to anything they shouldn't be exposed to. So I think we need to see how this develops over the next several days to a week or so before we can even consider something like that.
And maybe also the committee could meet and have some ideas that we can come up with that would be safe, but maybe would be able to help in some small way.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Chief Foligno for the extraordinary efforts you are making on behalf of Elmwood Park residents. And we have the last one from Brenda McCoy of Rudolph Avenue. I am a resident and property owner in Elmwood Park for the past 17 years. Will there be any lenience given for property taxes in the midst of the crisis?
I'm sure that that consideration will come down from the federal government, if not the state government, and possibly the county. But to be certain of that, I don't think any of us can answer that question at this point.
Okay, with that being said, Mayor, I will open up the line should anyone else from the public wish to speak.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Yes, this is Joe Dombrowski, 274.
Okay, I'm going to take one at a time. I heard Mr. Dombrowski the loudest, so we'll start with him.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. This is Joe Dombrowski, 274 Lincoln Avenue. A couple of things, Mayor. I listened for about 35 minutes of you of the council talking about tabling two resolutions, R 16320 and 164-20. On the zoning board, you have an alternate there. That's why we have alternates, to fill the spot of the individuals that can't perform their duties. I don't understand why this one was held up. Or actually, I know why, but obviously 163-20 with Ms. Freitag. I think Mr. Golovic said it, Councilman Golovic said it best, that possibly there's some outside influence here. Because there was a time that I sat on the council that the former mayor, Mr. Caramagna, Mr. Itag came up there and embarrassed him because he went to a school when there was a lockdown and took pictures with the students. And Mr. Golubitsky at one other time got up there and embarrassed him personally at a council meeting. You know, I honestly, and to Mr. Golubek's statement, I do truly hope that there's no outside influence here, but I really truly can't believe that that's not happening here. You know, I heard Councilwoman Wexler say that she didn't have time to talk to people. I know as a council person, you get your agenda on Tuesday, okay? It is our elected duty as elected officials to make sure that we know what we're voting on and get to the answers. I think having 2 days and just waiting until Thursday night to table something, it's unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable. Okay, the council gets their agendas on a Tuesday. Okay, and to wait for the council meeting to table is unacceptable. If you have questions, you have Wednesday and Thursday during the day to get this taken care of. And then lastly, Mayor, if I just may, I have no problem with RS 16620 renaming it the ball field to Veterans Park. But did anybody look into the fact that, and I believe back when Mr. May and Mr. Mayday were council members, that field was named after Scotty Beck. So I'm not sure that, again, I have no problem renaming it to Veterans Park. But what you're basically doing is taking the name of, you know, most people don't realize that field was always called Scotty Beckett Field way back at the beginning when it was first built. That used to be Mr. Beckett's property. So naming the field Veterans Ballpark, I'm all for it, no problem. But has anybody spoken to any of the remaining family members and saying that this is going to happen?
I couldn't answer that question, Joe. Once again, and I'm assuming, and we all know what happens when you assume, that was all cleared by the baseball league before they actually made that decision. But once again, that's only speculation on my part.
And then finally, Mayor, I'd just like to say that obviously you felt that you had the trust of the council that this was going to all move forward. I think what you just realized is that, as I did a while ago, is that you can't trust anybody at this point.
Very nice.
Thank you, Mr. Dombrowski. Anything else? Erin, do we have another?
Would someone else from the public like to speak at this time?
If no one else wishes to be heard, I will close the public hearing.
Maybe you should ask
All in
one more
favor?
time, Aaron. I
Aye.
think somebody else on before, wasn't there? So do you want to ask again, just to be sure they heard?
I agree.
Okay. I'd like to remind the public that, remember, this meeting was videotaped and will be on Cablevision Channel 77 on Mondays at 3 p.m., Thursday at 11:30 a.m., and Friday at 10 a.m. The video will also be available on the Borough website at www.elmwoodparknj.us. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want to thank the public out there. There were some good questions that came in, and everybody stay as well as you possibly can, and let's stick to the directives that are coming down from the people that are the professionals at this and the most knowledgeable about it. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.